Perfect. All right. Welcome, everyone. I know we're starting right at the top of the hour and people will be joining us as we get going. I want to welcome everyone to our Anagram and Optify Skyrocket your Optical with your private pay practice. Say that 5 times fast. Here this evening. It is a webinar series. We are going to be hearing from Steve and Dave, Steve from Anagram and Dave from Optify, but it is kind of like an open forum towards the end as well, where we're really going to be looking for those conversational questions about private pay and specifically e-commerce and the Prosper program. So we're excited to dive in with you tonight. First, as I kick it off, I want to do some housekeeping items. Down along the bottom of this Google Meet, you can see there's a couple icons down there. First one is your microphone and your camera. Now you won't be able to turn those on until the end when it's Q&A, but we'll definitely leave enough time for us to be able to talk live if you have questions you want to discuss with Steve and Dave here. The hand raise option, little hand icon down there at the bottom, will have you raise your hand. That's what you'll utilize to ask questions as we go through this webinar. And then down on the right-hand side, you can see a little icon that looks like a chat icon. That's where you're going to be able to drop in those questions you have, and you can kind of chat them to everyone. The reason I like that, I see Matthew, you're already using that function. Thanks, Matthew. Is because then you could see all the questions from everyone in the room, and then everyone can kind of see the responses there. I'll chat. Also be dropping some links into the chat as well as we go through this presentation and as we get kicked off. So be sure to pay attention to that. So with that being said, I'll make sure I'm watching the door, Steve and Dave, to allow more people to come in as you guys kick it off. But we're going to go ahead and kick off tonight with Mr. Steve Alexander from Anagram, who's going to tell us a little bit about the Prosper program and just how private pay practices can thrive in our current environment. So go ahead and take it away, Steve.
Thanks so much, Jen. Thanks, Dave, also for hosting this, for getting this together. Really excited to be here and have this conversation. So quick background on me. I've been in eye care since I was 16. I started as an optician, the old-fashioned way. I was working at a movie theater and my mom called me and said, "Hey, want to go work for an eye doctor?" And I was like, "Sure, I guess, whatever." As a teenager. But then when I got into the space, seeing how big an impact that could make on patients' lives, learning about all the actually cool ins and outs of optics and lenses and frames and contacts, kind of every influence that we can make on patients' lives. I have been there for actually past 20 years in eye care last year. I've been working at Anagram for a couple of years now. I've been familiar with Anagram for the last 6. And when I first heard about its initial program, which is now called Anagram Access, I thought, wow, what a game changer for the industry to allow practices to identify a patient's out-of-network benefits and file a patient's out-of-network claims without having to be subject to the restrictions that vision plans apply to practices. And those restrictions have actually only gotten more stringent over time. Anagram Prosper is something that we launched a couple of months ago in earnest. And what it allows is for practices to give their patients an instant rebate for buying independent eyewear, both on the frame and the lens side. And we're actually looking to add contact lenses as well. From a patient's perspective, getting an instant rebate for buying independent eyewear is something that changes the dynamic of the financial interaction. So there's a significant psychological difference between if I'm going to, as a patient, pay $500 for a pair of glasses and then maybe get a 10% discount. So, I would actually end up paying $450 or paying $500 for the pair of glasses and then getting a $50 rebate. The switch happens when, if in the first case, I paid $450 for a pair of glasses, the last financial interaction I had with the practice was I paid them $450. If in the inverse, it happens where I paid them $500 and I got a $50 rebate, the last financial interaction I had with the practice was they gave me money for purchasing eyewear there. It's a totally different feeling. And actually what we're seeing in practice is that the satisfaction, the patient satisfaction is increasing, the sell-through of the independent eyewear is increasing, and capture rates are going up fairly quickly. So really excited about the prospect of Prosper getting into more practices, not just for the measurable financial results, but for the ability for practices to better position themselves to get more private pay patients, which from a revenue standpoint, private pay patients are worth more on average than an in-network vision plan patient would be. But actually, beyond that, patients who come to your practice because you're you, and come to your practice because you offer the products that you do, or because the staff that you gathered is the right staff for the environment, or what have you, those patients tend to spend more, and as a result of finding you for you and spending more at your practice, they tend to be more loyal. So you end up being a little bit less dependent on the whims of vision plans. I think that's a good intro for where we're at.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, Steve. So I'm going to drop the link to the Prosper program in the chat. Do you want to go over just some FAQs that people tend to have around the program?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Prosper is there's no charge to join. It is something that all you have to do as a practice to join is sign up for one of the price lists that we've negotiated, not dissimilar from buying groups or alliances that exist in the space. The difference here is we've negotiated pricing to be lower for the practice and also facilitate a rebate to the patient at the time of sale. So it is super simple to use, and it creates those delightful experiences, and there are no limitations to it. We've got lenses available from Shamir and Zeiss and Hoya and Essilor, as well as IoT and Horizon, a lot of the private label lenses that are getting out there. So there are tons of different ways to get an instant rebate for your patients, and a lot of ways that this program can increase your optical revenue by driving more of that private pay business and by capturing more of that when they do come into your practice. The link that Jen just dropped should lead you to a landing page where there are 2-minute-long videos that describe, one describes access in a simple way, and one describes Prosper in a simple way. And then all you have to do is fill out your information on that form, and then someone from our team will reach out to you to talk you through how it might work at your practice.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. I'm going to kick it over to Dave Barton now to tell us a little bit about Optify and just selling your inventory online as a private pay practice. So Dave, you have the ability to share your screen. Go ahead and dive in.
All right, that sounds good. I just want to say that I remember Anagram before it was Anagram. It was Patch, and I remember meeting the team at a Vision Expo when they were all in purple shirts and giving out cookies at the very beginning. And it's awesome to see how far it's come. And I, through a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand, was a user of Patch and then Anagram, and it was an awesome experience. I just saw the software just improve leaps and bounds. It was a great right out of the gate, but just kept getting better and better, and eventually became Anagram. And it was a really easy way to capture, patients. And it's really cool to see what's going on with Prosper too. And I think it's going to be just as successful.
Thank you.
So yeah. So at Optify, we're definitely here to help private practices succeed. I mean, that's our number one goal, and help you maximize the patient relationship when it comes to frames. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully y'all can see it. So our goal is to help you use technology to increase your eyewear revenue and help you turn your patients into loyal eyewear shoppers. We're based out of San Diego. That's where I'm sitting. We currently service hundreds of practices across the US. We're made by opticians for opticians. My background, I am an optician. I'm formerly an executive with Oliver Peoples. I ran all their product there. The #1 distribution channel was Independent Optical. They were acquired by Oakley and Luxottica while I was there. And then I ran a direct-to-consumer eyeglass brand, luxury eyeglass brand for 8 years. So really diverse experience on both the brick and mortar, and optical, e-commerce side of the business. So happy to answer any questions you have around my experience in that world. The base level, what is Optify? This just kind of helps frame the conversation. We help turn these, we call them logo pages on sites, which are great to kind of show which brands you might sell in your practice, but they're also an encouragement for patients to Google, and in one search, they're on that brand site or on, glasses.com or Iconic or somewhere else, and it starts disconnecting that purchase with that patient. So you want to keep them in your ecosystem, and that's what we help you do. So we don't take over your site. We don't replace anything. We just help you direct any traffic. If you clicked one of those logos, it would go to that brand on your Optify powered subdomain. So it lives adjacent to your existing site. It's branded your practice, and it has your inventory, your frame inventory on your site, which is really, really helpful to engage your patients and keep them connected, with your practice. And that's important because most practices, around 40% of their revenue, of the overall practice revenue, comes from frames and lenses. So it's a really important part of the business. I know we're all here to help serve patients from a medical side, and that's what gets them in the door. But a big part of our business is the optical. And a lot of patients increasingly are Google searching, and if they can find you through your frame lines as well, you can connect that purchase to your practice before or after they're in. So the challenges here are private pay practices, or private practices, I should say, are often having patients that are not coming in ready to buy because of that disconnect. And they're increasingly leaving without purchasing because they didn't come in a buying mindset. Their mind is on another place where they can acquire frames. And not enough patients are converting to multiple pairs. So we all do our best in the practice to convert to multiple pairs, but 10 to 15% is a pretty good number, which means 85 to 90% are leaving without buying more than one pair. And this is because behavior is changing. Luxottica e-commerce up 47% in 2021. Obviously, people are gravitating towards the online sphere. 3 out of 4 Warby Parker customers browse on their website before they buy in their store, which is where most of their sales happen. So patients prefer to start online, finish in office. And then the Vision Council Internet Influence Report says that 44% of private practice patients are using the internet to research eyewear. So again, this is just disconnect. If we don't have a solution, and less than 1% of ECPs do right now, have a solution to be able to connect that purchase, it just makes it harder to do and takes longer in the practice, and you don't sell as much. What's the solution? It's to take your EHR database. This is where your patient relationships are housed. Could be decades of your work in your practice of building patient relationships and keeping track of when are they coming in next, when were they in last, what did they buy last, did they not buy, did they buy? And this is where you keep your frame inventory and your lens inventory as well. And you use that to unlock that to earn your patient's purchase. By putting your frames on your website and having it sync up with what you have in stock, this encourages patients to go to your site to look at frames versus elsewhere before they come in, start connecting that purchase. And after they walk out, if they didn't buy or for multiple pairs, they have a place to come back to if they're not actually physically in your practice. So how does this kind of work? Patients pre-shop before they come in. They get a notification to look at your site and select a few frames. This puts them in a buying mindset. This gets them excited about buying from your practice. It connects that purchase to your practice, and it moves them about 15 minutes ahead. So they've already started thinking about what they want. They move through the practice faster. The doctor to optical handoff is much easier. The optician loves it because now they can see what that patient is interested in. That question of, are you interested in eyewear today, is no longer even needed because they've already started picking out frames. Would you like to update your look? They've already kind of indicated that, when they pick up frames before. And if it's a frame they're excited about or multiple frames they're excited about, it makes it easier to sell more pairs. Walkouts. So they don't buy. Everybody that patient comes across where they go onto a website, there's pop-ups, give me your email address, here's a discount, here's It's the front of the Costco, Optical is up front. They're trying to get this patient's attention every single place except for the optometrist practice, the optical practice, whether it's wherever it is, they're not doing it. So we need to get in front of these patients. And then multiple pairs. We try to convert as many as we can in the practice. However, if they don't convert, we don't do anything. We need to message them a few weeks after their exam to let them know that this, your location is still a viable place to purchase another pair. They've opened that drawer and they have a new prescription, like, well, I can't wear these anymore, I should get another pair. Their only option is to like hop in the car and drive down and hope they can find something. Now they can go on a site, your site, and start connecting that purchase back, and you can encourage them to by reaching out to them. So it sounds like a lot of work, right? There's a lot of messages all at different times. This is where we really help. You can use automations. So we automate marketing sends based around your EHR activity. We connect with all the major EHRs, and we automate this messaging. So it knows when the patient's coming in, send them pre-shop message. It knows if they didn't buy, send them walk out. It knows if they purchased a pair, send them multiple pair marketing automatically. Nobody in the practice has to do anything. And we have a large product catalog. You don't have to have, you might be thinking, okay, well, I have to go get a light box, and at lunch, I guess somebody at my staff has to go take a bunch of pictures of frames and put them on my site, and do that every day when we get new ones in. You don't have to do that. We have 750 brands, 300,000 images. We have the entire frames data catalog plus 200,000 more, and a lot of independent brands as well. And we build your site for you. So there's no picture taking. We have it all the descriptions, everything. And we automatically sync that inventory every day. So the patient, if they buy something, it goes out of your inventory. If you get new inventory in, it shows up on your site. So what to expect? Save about 15 minutes per patient that uses Optify before they come in for that exam. So this is a massive time saving. Staffing is a big deal right now. This can help your staff get some time back. And then increase capture rate by 5 to 15% by engaging those patients before they come in or after they leave. You're converting more of these patients because you're connecting that purchase back to your practice. And then increase your average order value by about 5% we see, because these patients are coming in potentially with multiple pairs they've selected, and it's an invitation to sell them more than one pair. Easy to launch. We connect to your subdomain, your EHR, get some information from the practice. We go to work about 3 to 4 weeks later. We launch your site after a training, about a 30-minute training for the staff, and you can start rolling out features. This is a testimonial from one of our doctors.
We love having Optify in the office. It works. It integrates with Crystal, which works really well. My opticians tell me they save about 15 minutes per frame style for any patient that's pre-selected before they come into the office. It has saved us so much time. I think it also makes us look a lot more professional. Patients aren't wandering around looking at all our 1,000+ frames, and instead our opticians are seeing what the patient wants, looking at the patient, and going and selecting the frames for the patient to try on. So it saves a lot of time. I highly recommend it.
So she loves the time-saving aspects of the software, and really helps move patients through the practice. So this is kind of what it would look like. So this is one of our practices. You can add a shop eyewear button on your site. So now instead of patients going here going, yeah, it looks like a great optometry practice, I should check out maybe what glasses they have, it's right there. The platform is SEO friendly too, so they can oftentimes find your practice based around searches of particular frame lines and products. And when they click that, and that's your main site, we don't do anything here, we don't change this, you would just add a button there. This goes to a subdomain, shop. Or optical. Whatever your URL is. It has your logo. The patient is in your ecosystem with your colors, your imagery, your products. And they can sort and filter and shop sunglasses, optical, kids, men's, women's, browse. They can do quick ads, all these different things. It's a very modern, mobile first. It shrinks right down to mobile size. So the images and everything is mobile friendly. And when they click on something, they can dig in a little deeper. They can try on in the practice. You can buy, you can add lenses and purchase. You can get a price quote. This is key. This is something I want to dig into a little, because this is where it could really help with private pay. And then virtual try-on is an option as well. And we have a really robust dashboard with the marketing sends, what's your marketing activity look like, where are people coming from, and it's a really easy dashboard for staff to manage. They get notifications if something comes through via email, and if you can basically use Gmail, you can use Optify. It's very simple. The skill comes into what they know about optics, how they know how to serve patients. The software just helps them do it in a virtual way if they'd like. And it pays for itself quickly. Just a couple of frames a month and you're in the black, and there's a lot of, depending on your capture rate and how many exams you do, there are thousands of dollars every month that are left on the table that you could be acquiring if you engage your patients in this way. So I'll get back to pricing in a second, but yeah, and if I could show a live demo right here of a couple of features. So this is a demo site right here. It shows, kind of how you can customize logo. It'll be at your subdomain, imagery, etc. You can sort brands, filter, etc. Very modern, shrinks down to, mobile size. You can add frames to a try on and check out and try them on in the office. You could click on the frame, do the different things. You can do this, get a price quote. If you click here, patient can fill out some quick information on how they expect to use their glasses, submit that, and a price quote is sent through. Really a cool feature, because on the admin side, price quote will show up and the staff can answer it and see the preferences that the patient selected, and can put in the different discounts or different benefits that the practice offers. You can put the lens in that we've uploaded on your behalf, or you can type in the description of that particular lens and put in the support, and you can use different tools like Anagram for sure, Prosper, can be used to be able to transparently show the patient what they'll be paying out of pocket. And that's a private quote between the patient and the practice. So really helpful. The try-ons are managed here. You can see what they look like.
I don't want to interrupt, Dave, but I can't help but think this whole time as you're talking through this, when I was an optician, one of the most common questions I got on the phone, that, those incoming phone calls that interrupt everything that you're doing, one of the most common questions I got was, how much are glasses?
Right.
And there's no good way to answer that, because it depends. Like, what do you like? What kind of lenses do you need? What's your prescription? But this information allows a patient to answer that question themselves and then expedite the process from there. That's tremendous stuff.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, exactly. It's transparency and some simplicity for the patient, which they love. So that's great. That's great to hear, Steve. So this is what the dashboard looks like. You have your price quotes here. It's just a form fill that you can fill out to see what that patient's requested. And you have that save and send to patient, private price quote with the patient. And that page you saw before updates with whatever their out of pocket is. And then you have your try-ons here. So you could see what these patients have picked. Very simple. This is optician gold. For a lot of opticians, like, oh, great, I can really see what this patient is interested in. Ton of information here. Patient's excited. They move through the practice faster because the optician can reference this immediately when that patient's in. You don't have to pull the frames off the wall. You can leave them there. You can just reference this screen, have a conversation with the patient, and then pull. Some practices want to pull if they space out exams and they're really high dollar value purchases. Sometimes they'll have this kind of bespoke experience. Others are like high volume. Let's move the patient through and help get them to the frames that they're looking for faster. The patient participates in their eyeglass purchase before they come in, which is extremely important because that keeps them engaged with your practice and it makes them more likely to buy. And then there's a full suite of, you can accept orders, print label, ship things, full e-commerce suite of logistic management. So it keeps track of where your inventory is, everything. So really easy to use interface.
So in the case, I don't know, I'm curious about this. In the case that I'm an optician, I'm looking at this screen, patient has them picked out. Am I able to order the eyewear from my lab from this screen?
Not from this screen. So we're more of a logistics software for where those frames are and to guide the patient. So once an order is placed, and you can accept orders, accept money, it gets direct deposited into your account. The order is entered into your EHR or your normal fulfillment process. It's keyed in, and you can put in the expected date when those glasses will be ready, so the patient can come back to the site and see when they'll be ready. So it doesn't disrupt any of your normal flows. You can use your whatever lab you're using. You can, however you are currently doing it, it'll support.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have, I don't know if there were any, this is a helpful tool that we use to kind of give practices an idea of what we see in terms of time saved, capture rate lift, and order value lift that other practices see. We kind of base it around number of exams, because that gives you an idea of patient volume and refractions, capture rate, where you currently are and how we can help, and then the average order value. So I can just type some numbers in here. 2 OD practice, that's doing 50 exams a week per doctor, maybe 100 per week, capture rate, maybe 55%, depends on the practice. I'm putting numbers in that I just hear a lot. Maybe average order value, 350. These are the type of impacts we see in practices. So there's a potential, and this is, your mileage varies. If you're an older demographic that's just doing, like cataract follow-ups and things like that, maybe this number isn't going to be as high. But if you're in a younger, or Gen X like me demographic, where they're very tech forward, then this number could be quite a bit higher. But there's definitely a significant amount of revenue that by engaging before and after the exam, these patients in an e-commerce and omni-channel way, that you can pull back into the practice. And that's like not a huge practice either. So that's like in 12 hours of staff time saved per month. So that's kind of what we're seeing. You do 250 exams, and you see that number can change quite a bit. And if you have a little bit higher capture rate, it can help give it a bump. You can start seeing higher numbers. This is what we're seeing. So it's a really, really, the ROI here can be significant. And then that kind of moves into the pricing. So I can share this tab again here. The price starts for Optify at about $300 a month if you pay annually. And we do a one-time setup of $1,500, but we've reduced that for the webinar to $1,000. And you can earn thousands of dollars in new revenue every month, as you saw, by just engaging patients in a modern way. So yeah, that concludes my part of the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so we have a few questions that we'll dive into. Steve, we'll have you do just kind of a recap too. And right now I'm going to go ahead and change the settings here. So if anyone wants to turn their mic on, turn their camera on, and ask those live questions, then I'm turning those options on now. And you can go ahead and use that little hand raise button at the bottom. So I think we still have Mark and Matthew and Dr. Tran and Renee all in the room too. So go ahead and turn those on. Let me dive into the questions for you guys. So does Optify connect with Eyefinity?
Working on that. So that's in the cards, and we're underway with that.
We got a live question from Matthew, Dr. Allen, potentially. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Steve. Hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for putting this on tonight. Steve, I came across this whole thing. You were on the Power Hour with Bethany Fishbane. She's my classmate, and I really enjoyed that session with her. So, and Dave, this is something definitely that I've always I feel our practice needs tremendously. We're a very busy practice, 4-doctor practice, $2 to $3 million gross. But anyways, we are, I think, lacking in a lot of areas. And when you're referring to an active inventory, David, I haven't really dove into the optical. I've let the optical lead do what I want them to do, but we don't have a live inventory, which we need to do, obviously, in order to do what you're asking with your platform. Do you have any guidance with that? And I know the gentleman, you were referring to EHR, and I did ask the question. We have OfficeMate server-based system. So that, I guess that's kind of a multifaceted question, but that's
yeah. We connect with that's a great questions, and we run into this, and it makes me think of a few instances where so OfficeMate we do connect with, but it doesn't sound like you house your inventory there, correct? You have
correct, but as I say, I've just been dipping my toe into the optical area because I've let my optical manager do it, but they're so busy. And the reason for the Steve component is we take literally every vision plan known to human beings out there. Ooh. And I would love to start to get rid of some of those, and that's where Anagram steps in to help us. So you both are extremely valuable to me right at the moment. So we'll have further conversations after this.
Fantastic. Well, I definitely think we can help. The automations for the marketing can happen through with Optify, can happen through your OfficeMate currently. And then the inventory, if you have it in a spreadsheet or something, you send it over and we upload it and we can maintain it monthly. And a lot of times that helps clean the inventory. So then if you eventually want to start managing it in your EHR, you can load it back into the EHR. So we can really be helpful there. And I definitely want to hand it over to Steve too for Anagram, because it sounds like he could be a big help there too.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Dr. Allen, pleasure. Thanks so much for listening to the Power Hour. I had a great time speaking with Dr. Fishbane. She's one of my favorite ODs ever. She's fantastic. So I actually took the time while you were talking. I tracked down your website and found your optical. I hope it's. Are you in Oneida, New York?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is fortuitous. Your designer frame page has that, logo wall that Jen and Dave had been talking about a bit earlier. But what's actually really great about the collections that you have is all of them exist in frames data. And OfficeMate is actually fairly well in tune with frames data. The ability to upload inventory is fairly simple. It would probably take real time a month, given how busy your practice is, not like of constant effort, but a month with 2 to 3 hours devoted weekly to getting this done. You do it one frame board at a time, upload it, and then ensure that your practice uses the inventory when placing orders. That would keep it updated. I think Dave's point about updating it monthly, like that, is a great solution to not have to front load the work. But it does mean there's a month gap between your inventory and what's presented online. So I think that could, it can be done, and it ought to be done. There's also a ton of information lost by not maintaining an active inventory. You have, I would hazard a guess that you don't have static frame boards, right? So my guess is that when a patient buys a frame, you send it to the lab. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So in a case like that, something that I often point out is you, in that case, have no idea what your best-selling frame is. So let's say you bring in a collection of Lilly Pulitzer, for example, and you've got one frame that, it sells the first day you put it up on the board, and it's gone for 6, 12, 20 weeks before your rep comes in and replaces it, and you've sold it once, and then you don't know how many times you could have sold it in the time that it's not on your boards, right? So there's an opportunity cost to that. I know, Dave, I'm totally stepping on your toes at the.
No, this is like, I love this. I love hearing this, because this is, I mean, I came from the All Over People side, and we would, I rarely ran into a practice that would backstock inventory. And if those best sellers are out of stock for a week or two from Oliver Peoples, for example, you're missing out on so much revenue. So yeah, having inventory in stock, especially your best sellers and particularly evergreen ones, is so important to maximize your revenue. That could be a whole podcast in itself. It probably is somewhere.
It's definitely something I've talked about before, because I think there's value in having backstock. But after a while, if you've got a static frame boards, and it doesn't make sense to do it for necessarily every collection, but if you know that there's a collection that really works in your practice, that should be a static inventory. And then eventually, if you start with 36 frames and over the course of a quarter, you will sell, 24 of them, at least once, and most of them you'll turn more than once. The 12 that you didn't sell, you can replace them with something that may sell. And then you end up with a frame board full of winners. But the only way you can find that out is if it's static for a while. Otherwise, you're guessing at stuff. Sorry, what was that, Dave?
There's one way to help too. When you put that online and you leave it there, even if you sell it out, you still are going to get requests. And if that happens over and over again, it's kind of a forcing function to make sure you keep that frame in stock. So it's helpful to do that. Even if you're out of stock, leave it on your site, because if patients continue to request that in try-ons, maybe leave that on the board and start drop shipping from the manufacturer, or come up with a creative solution so you're not out of that frame. Because if you sell it at 10 a.m. and a patient wants to buy it at 2.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to pivot a bit to the out of network, in network conversation. The way that I like to position it in this chat is, and you would have heard it on the Power Hour, is as a function of volume and time. So if you're in network with every vision plan, and Dr. Allen, you said you've got 4 doctors and you're booked out fairly far in advance. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so if you're booked out, if I could ask, are you booked out 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks?
I'm booked out 3 months.
Okay.
My other docs are 6 to 10 weeks booked out.
Okay, great. This is a really great problem to have. Congratulations on all the demand, on your practice. Something that I would immediately want to ask you is, what happens when a new patient calls and says they want to come see you or a doctor in your practice? What's the front desk do?
There was a time we weren't accepting new patients, but we are accepting new patients now. And I actually do see, I've been at the practice for 20 years, and I try not to see new patients, because I like to put them on my associate's schedule, but I still see new patients. So they find a space for them, and if there's a hole, then they put them in the hole. So.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So without getting too specific about the actual vision plans in your practice, I'm going to make an assumption that you have vision plans that you prefer and vision plans that you would rather not engage with if you could avoid it. Assuming that that's the case, the lower end of that spectrum probably comprises a vision plan or several that you see a smaller proportion of the time, and the revenue that you generate from each is significantly lower than the vision plans that you prefer, and certainly than the private pay patients that you would generate the most revenue from. If you think about your vision plans as a function of volume and time, if there's a vision plan that comprises, let's say, 10% of your patient base, but only makes up 5% of your top line revenue and subsequently close to 2% of your bottom line revenue, if you drop that vision plan today and make no other plans than to just drop that vision plan today, the practical impact on your practice is you get 10% more space to see patients, you lose 5% of top line revenue and 2% of bottom line revenue. If in your case, as you're booked out months and weeks, depending on which doctor we're talking about, that opens the door to private pay patients, medical patients, and new patients. And I emphasize new patients because new patients are, typically speaking, 10 times more expensive to acquire than an existing patient. And new patients tend not to want to wait. That's not always the case. Sometimes you've got a destination business and customers will wait for you, but generally speaking, that is the case. So the potential risk that you run by dropping a vision plan that you'd rather not deal with anyway is, in your particular case, almost nothing. Now, how does that feel actually?
Well, I can tell you, the big gorilla in the room is Versant and Davis, and the amount of labor hours that my, Optical spends on these folks is great. And I just don't feel, and I can, this is a offline conversation with you all, but it really needs to be dove into. I mean, my, spending as much time on the phone as we do with Versant is just ridiculous. And that's my great interest in Anagram. And so that's we'll be having other conversations, Steve. So
fantastic. Well, I really appreciate the question. I appreciate the time, and thank you for sharing. But yeah, I look forward to having this conversation with you, and I very much look forward to telling your story once you kick Versant out the door and have all the time to be successful.
And Dave, on your end, I mean, I get sick of patients saying, contact lens patient comes in, I see, I saw some today, oh, are we doing glasses, contacts? Oh, contacts. I was just going to get some glasses online. It's that. I'm like, buyer beware. But I mean, if I had this venue, then they would be, I say, hey, go to my website, check out, if you want to buy them online, so this is definitely something that I need in my practice as well. So
Great. That's a great use case.
So I'm going to kick it back over to the other questions that are dropping in the chat right now. To everyone else that's in the room, we did not pay Mr. Matthew Allen to come here and ask these phenomenal questions, but it is great to have him here. So I'll go ahead and pass a couple over to you. So yes, I think we cleared up EHR, practice management system. We're kind of calling those the same here. Dr. Tran has questions for both Optify and Anagram. Is there a reduced fee for a cold start? We had a lot of those cold start questions popping up. So Steve, I'll let you answer that, and Dave, you're next.
With Prosper, it's free either way. So there's no charge to participate in Prosper. All you have to do is sign up for our price list. And actually with a cold start, this is a great chance to build your practice as a destination practice to do something new. So if you're a Prosper participating practice, thanks alliteration, then you can advertise on your website, on your social media channels, that when patients come and buy their eyewear directly from you, you can get an instant rebate. So that'll drive patients through your doors. So that's free right away. On the Anagram Access side, we don't have an established cold start discount, but Jen dropped that form, that link in the channel. So Dr. Tran, if you could fill it out, let's have a conversation. I'm sure we can make something work.
Cool. Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of practices over the last month or so, and a surprising number of cold starts. I thought everybody just sells to private equity and there's no new ones, but there's a lot of new ones. It's really cool. I was talking to one in La Jolla, one in Hawaii the other day, and a lot of times they're spending a ton of money and they're like waiting for the build out that's taking forever, but they have a website up and and a lot of them are younger too. And they're like, yeah, I need to have my frames on my site. And so I think we're close to having a program for cold starts. It's something I hope we can announce soon. It's I think really valuable to get more ODs, into the ecosystem. And it's a valuable thing to have even before your brick and mortar opens, because it just starts getting patients, you're doing advertising, you're trying to build your momentum to get your practice open. So having your frames up there is really, really valuable. So yeah, that's something that we're working on, and please reach out to as well, like you are to Steve.
Yeah, philosophically, I'm a huge believer in, Dave, I'm sure this is the case for you as well. I'm a huge believer in behavior building concepts, behavior building products. Anagram certainly is one. Optify certainly is one. And I don't just mean behavior building for your staff or for your practice, but I also mean for your customers and your patients. As an example, you see Dave and I both wearing glasses. Both of us have the anti-reflective coating on our lenses, right? Really great example. Once a patient has the anti-reflective coating, they almost never go back to not having it. Once a patient goes to a practice and is able to pick out their frames before they set foot in the office, they will never go back to not to having a lesser experience than that. So if you build your practice with a modern experience, with the ability to get instant rebates, with the freedom to separate from the vision plans early in your process, then you're going to build your practice to be the practice that you want it to be right from the jump. It is, like Dave said, it's super encouraging, the number of cold starts that we're seeing and the sort of vigor with which new grads and new opticians are attacking the industry. It's heartening to see. And I think part of that is fueling the sea change that we're seeing in the industry. And part of that, I think, is fueled by the sea change that we're seeing in the industry. There's been a pretty significant response to what the vision plans have been doing, and a pretty significant response to what the private equity groups have been doing. And I think Gen X and millennials are sort of united in this notion that, maybe big corporations aren't the best way forward, and maybe shopping local is a value that we can express, and maybe supporting mom and pop shops is a great way to keep our local communities thriving. And all of that adds up to a really encouraging future.
Well said.
Yeah, definitely, Steve. Okay, a couple more questions. Renee just gives us the little hands up emoji. So Renee Lipton, or Dr. Lipton, thanks for that encouraging emoji there. Next question, does Optify also connect with Anagram and Sendbit, or during payment transactions? So Dave, that's to you, probably just talking about payments for when they're buying online.
Yeah, sure. So while we don't directly connect yet, we help. There's ways to help encourage patients to use, those to use like Anagram or Sendbit. And not to get too techy, but you can put something in called Google Tag Manager into your Optify site, which gives you the ability to do a pop-up. So if you can just go to these pop-up makers, most of them are free. Some of them charge a few bucks a month. It'll say patient has been lingering on checkout page or X page for a certain period of time, show a pop-up, and it'll show a pop-up that says click here to learn more, and you can direct them to your Anagram page or your Sendbit page. That's really a helpful way to get people unstuck, especially if they're looking at price.
All right, next question in the chat here is talking about onboarding. So Dave, can you give us explain onboarding for Optify?
Sure. So we have a great customer success team. They will reach out to you once you sign up and schedule a 20-minute conversation with whoever your office champion is that has access to the EHR login or whatever it is that we need to connect to. Usually there's a person in the practice that does that, and our staff gets the information, makes the connections, and then goes to work. So that's it. Your staff stops. And then we have about 3 weeks to build things out. We schedule about a 30-minute training, and your staff will go through that training process, and we start turning things on, and then patients start using the software. And then we're there to help along the way.
Awesome. All right, so I just want to draw everyone's attention again to that chat. There's 2 links, one from Anagram Prosper to watch those 2 videos on that landing page and find out more information. And then another link for Optify, where as an attendee, you get $500 off that. So you can click that link as well. I'm going to give the option to anyone who wants to unmute their mic and ask a live question. And then we're going to kind of do a quick little wrap up. So let's see. We heard from Dr. Tran and Matthew. We got Mark in the room too. Do you have any questions there? Renee's been chatting with us. Looks like Renee's from a frame company, which is awesome. Thanks for joining us and learning more.
Just a frame rep.
Ooh, silhouette, my first love. when I started as an optician at 16, it was, it was too expensive for the Pearl Vision that I was working at, and they were thinking about getting rid of it. But then I tried them on. I'm like, man, these are amazing. And they became our top seller. I'm a unabashed lover of Silhouette.
That's awesome. That's so great. I used to work with Celeste Voss at Oliver Peoples, and I think she's there at Silhouette now.
Yeah.
So, small world. Yeah, great line.
Yeah, Renee, if you want to hit up Celeste and tell her we would love Silhouette on Prosper, please do so.
All right, Matthew, go for it.
I don't want to monopolize all you. They did not pay me. I am truly interested in both of these gentlemen and their companies. But Dave, how long has Optify been around?
So we're just coming up on 2 years old for how long our company's been around from our very first customer, but based around about a decade of online, selling of glasses. And there's a lot to learn. We're a B2B2C, business. So we sell software to optometry practices, but it has to be able to work, just like Anagram for the consumer side too. So there's a lot of learnings on just how are they going to interact with e-commerce website, and that we have a lot of experience building, and we've applied that to the software for the optometry practice.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, guys. Well, we got to all the questions. We definitely got to talking with Renee and Dr. Tran and Matthew and everyone else on this call. So there will be a recording we'll send out to everyone that registered. We did have a pretty big registration list. Matthew, Dr. Tran, those would be great to circulate there with your optical managers and opticians. They'll also have contact information for Anagram and Optify. So I'll go ahead and let Steve, let's just give you like a 30-second wrap up on Prosper, and then Dave, you do the same, and we'll call it an evening.
All right, thanks, Jen. So just a quick wrap up. Anagram has two products, Access and Prosper. Anagram Access is a provider-initiated out-of-network vision care eligibility verification and claim submission platform. Anagram Prosper is a provider-initiated instant rebate platform for eyewear purchases for patients, both of which are designed to drive private pay business through your doors and reduce your reliance on vision plans for patients. I think this is a great group, actually, right along with Optify, to have this conversation. Our idea, and along with Optify's, I think, is to bring eye care into the 21st century. I think that's, we're long overdue for that. And it's so great to see this happening in real time.
Well said. Yeah, so that's great. And with Optify, we are, we try to meet the patients in their frame journey where they are, and that's increasingly online. They get started there, they're increasingly finishing there. And we try to, we create software to help your practice do that, engage them before the exam, after they leave, build automation so it's not a heavy lift for the staff. And it reminds me of, I've had opticians say, like, back in the day, we would have note cards and we would call the patients 3 or 4 weeks after the exam. Well, nobody has time for that anymore. So you need automations to re-engage those patients. They like it, they're used to it. And we're here to help save time, increase capture rate, increase that average order value rate. So that's what we're here for. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. So we got like 3 minutes to spare. So we wrapped it up on time, and we got to all of Matthew's questions and everyone else's questions. So thank you so much, Steve from Anagram and Dave from Optify. Again, the recording of this video will live on the Anagram blog and the Optify blog as well for replay. It'll be sent out to everyone that registered. So thank you so much for everyone joining us this evening. And with that, I'll go ahead and close it out.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.